Hello, welcome to the Geekly. My name is Jules.
I'm Lex.
Got to start by saying we have two new patrons over the Christmas
Yay.
holidays. Two lovely new people have joined the ranks. Thank you to Jeremy and Melissa. Your various rewards are coming out as and when they are ready. I know that your coasters are currently in production because they're handmade, hand-stitched. They take a little bit of extra time. People are actually paying us to do this, which is so exciting.
And if you want to pay us to do this, you can find our page on Patreon at /GeekNerd. We have loads of different tiers and rewards that you can go in, starting from $1 up to $20. You can also find us on Twitter at GeekNerdPod. We're also on Facebook /The Geekly, and we have a website at geeknerdpod.com.
And what did you do over your winter vacation? This is technically our first official episode of 2020.
Well, I got a Switch for Christmas, so I've kind of been preoccupied with that.
What have you been playing on it?
I started with Pokemon Sword, rushed through that in about a week. Then I went to Zelda Link's Awakening, and then lately I've been playing Final Fantasy VII and a bit of Stardew Valley.
Yeah, and all the videos you've been putting up on Twitter, everybody's been really loving those, lots of likes on those. I spent some time over this winter period catching up on some films that I haven't seen. Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, Ready Player One. I saw Jojo Rabbit with you at the cinema.
Yeah.
I also saw Knives Out. Oh, and I also saw Nightcrawler, which is something I wanted to see for a very long time. So I feel I'm slightly more up to date with my film watching. So we've got three things to review today. I'm going to review episode 1 of Avenue 5. It's technically episode 2 of Legends of Tomorrow, but it's the first one after the crisis. And also the animated film Batman Year One. I think we're going to start with Batman Year One. Ben McKenzie, Bryan Cranston doing the two lead roles. Bruce Wayne returns after his 12-year absence of presumably training with the League of Shadows. Jim Gordon, it's his first time in Gotham City. He's just a lieutenant. And that's where the story kind of picks up.
Well, the title is sort of misleading because it's not really a Batman story. It's really kind of a Jim Gordon story.
It was, yeah.
And like Bruce Wayne is kind of in there a bit, but the focus is definitely Jim Gordon and kind of like his introduction to Gotham City.
And I like that. We talk sometimes about Batman, maybe he should be not the main character in his own stories. I thought he was used sparingly, and even when he was used, I was more interested in the Jim Gordon story, I would say.
Overall, I didn't really get drawn into this. The acting was fine, the animation was fine, the story was a little bit dull. I kind of wish they'd cut Bruce Wayne / Batman out of it entirely and just focused on Jim Gordon.
Year One.
Yeah, and because I think it would have been a smoother narrative if it'd just been about Jim Gordon. Because we don't really, I think that like with the Batman adjacent properties that people feel like Batman has to be in there. You know, we saw that with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie. They sort of shoehorned Bruce Wayne and the death of his parents into that. And I don't necessarily think that just because something is set in Gotham, we have to see a Bruce Wayne Batman version.
Yeah.
The television show Gotham, I think it would have been so much better if Bruce Wayne had just not been in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think Jim Gordon's like a really compelling character. And I think that in this, they made the right decision by giving him the lead in a story called Batman Year One. Gotham's Jim Gordon, I didn't find compelling often. This story made me think, yeah, like I almost want to see more of Jim Gordon moving forward. I thought it was interesting seeing Jim Gordon coming to a new city. He wasn't like a saint. He'd had this thing where he'd gone to internal affairs and he'd implicated a cop in Chicago, which is where he came from. Everybody was a bit upset about that because cops shouldn't, there's this idea that cops shouldn't implicate cops. And so he comes to Gotham looking for a new start, but already with a bit of baggage. He's a bit of a renegade. He's not on the take. He's beaten up. The scene where he was able to just take the weapon and beat the shit out of this guy was kind of awesome. Like, I don't associate that necessarily with Jim Gordon. I suppose this is young man Gordon. And in the films, we tend to get Commissioner Gordon. I like the tone, I like the aesthetic. Cranston embodied Gordon really well. I thought Ben McKenzie was the most robotic, dehumanised Bruce Wayne I've ever heard. By and large, there's nothing new here. We know this story. It's been told better than this. And I think generally this film is for the completionist, but I liked seeing Gordon have his moment in the sun, and it just makes me want more of Jim Gordon, really.
I enjoy Jim Gordon as a character, and as you said, Gotham's Jim Gordon wasn't that compelling, but the premise was really interesting, and I think having a character with a very defined moral compass in a city that is lacking any sort of morality is a really interesting setup. And then you have him on the police force, which is kind of inherently corrupt. And it's, Batman is very much a product of Gotham. He's got that harshness to him, the sort of do whatever it takes kind of attitude. And Jim Gordon is sort of the opposite of that. He has rules, he has defined morality, things should happen in a certain way, and he's trying to do good against all odds. And so, yeah, I think that's a really interesting story to tell, and I kind of wish they would get more into that.
I agree with you completely. That's how I see Jim Gordon. And when he first came to the city, I thought, okay, I want to see him take this kind of renegade attitude on the streets and do some good, because Gotham was presented, I don't know if you felt the same, but it was presented as a place without hope. It was completely overrun. Good news was the exception, whereas in Metropolis, it's the complete opposite. You very rarely get this crime, and Superman will kind of swoop in, the overpowered tank that he is, and just will end it almost immediately. That being said, what did you make of the Jim Gordon affair subplot which came into it, which I found kind of caught me off guard, to be honest with you? I was kind of surprised by it, but at the same time, it said to me that Gotham corrupts. Like, people cannot survive in Gotham without there being some kind of corruption of their morality.
I get what you're saying about like Gotham corrupts and stuff, but I feel like it was such a kind of cliched route to go down that it didn't really enhance the story any. Because like when he first comes and he's talking to the current commissioner, they're kind of having a sort of doublespeak conversation where Gordon is kind of remorseful of his behavior in Chicago and is trying to say, it won't be like that here, whereas the commissioner is kind of like, we know you, because of your history, we know you're the right kind of person for the police force in Gotham. And Gordon doesn't quite get that that's because the police force in Gotham is totally corrupt and fucked up, and they want somebody who will break the rules and kind of take the law into his own hands. So I felt that aside from the Batman interjections, I thought that like the affair was kind of one of the weakest plot points.
Going back to what you said previously, like Jim Gordon in my mind is just this, you think about the Gary Oldman one, he was such a strong man. He didn't do anything wrong. He faked his death for a while. That was I think the worst thing he did, and his family were obviously pissed off with him. But in every interpretation of Jim Gordon I've seen, he never, even in Gotham's Jim Gordon, he left his kind of fiancée before moving on to Lee. He's never done anything kind of like this, and I guess it just felt real world. Like, this wasn't even though it was animation, this wasn't children's animation. It felt like potentially what would actually happen to Jim Gordon in Gotham City. I like that they kind of went to marriage counselling and they kind of pushed through. They didn't let themselves become victims of Gotham City. He seems like a strong individual, and I'm sure his wife's had to be even stronger than him to put up with the bullshit of being the wife of a police officer. So I like that they came out stronger. But yeah, like just in general, there's nothing new here. So it's difficult to recommend. If there's anybody maybe coming to comic books who doesn't know Batman, it would be an interesting place to start. Quite an adult take.
And it's only an hour long, so
yeah.
you could like, as opposed to some of the other Batman films, you could easily sit down and get through it in an hour. And yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend this to anyone.
No, it's not quite action adventure. It's more admin adventure.
Yeah.
And it was kind of told through like the calendar kept moving on, like dates throughout. I think there's like a calendar year, obviously Batman Year 1, so it didn't necessarily have the momentum that you'd want it to have. But I must say, I really liked the animation. I really liked it tonally. I think there's a place in the market for kind of adult animation.
Oh, definitely.
Whereas a lot of the ones we've watched on this kind of animation watch, they were right off the bat, they're like aimed at kids. We know that.
Yeah.
Primary colours, and this is Gotham washed out. I didn't know there were this many shades of grey. They found them all. So it's not going to be for everyone, but that's probably our very honest review of Batman Year 1. Let's move on to Avenue 5. Right off the bat, Hugh Laurie's in it. I like Hugh Laurie. Josh Gad's in it. I haven't seen him in anything, but I've seen a million interviews that Josh Gad's done. I like shaky cam TV shows. I like mockumentaries. I like the shows where there's no audience laughter, there's no canned laughter. It's just this kind of awkwardness, that you get in like The Office or Curb, 30 Rock, Spaced, Green Wing. I like space. I like spaceships. This is set in space. An 8-week trip around Saturn something happens with the gravity and 3 years are added onto the trip. And all those things on paper, I kind of think to myself, this is going to be a bit of a romp, this is going to be quite funny. Armando Iannucci, Veep, The Thick of It, things like that. And if you're advertising something as like a dark, shaky cam mockumentary style Armando Iannucci comedy, it's got to make you laugh. All these elements on paper, sign me up. But I just found it flat from beginning to end. Nothing particularly worked.
I think the problem with this show is that it doesn't really do anything new. And we've gotten quite a variety of shows that are set in space, from The Orville to Star Trek, Star Wars, dramas like The Expanse and Killjoys, and there's a litany of space shows right now, and most of them are like serious dramas. I think probably The Orville is the only other comedic one. Avenue 5 doesn't really do anything different, and because we have this like oversaturation of space dramas, like they needed to raise the bar, definitely. And they do have all the elements. They've got a great cast, the set looks great, visually it's very appealing, the premise is really good, they're not funny.
Sometimes in a TV show, or maybe specifically in the episode of a TV show that's a sitcom, all the humour will be built around a particular gimmick. And in this one episode, the gimmick was the 26-second time delay. And it just wasn't funny. 26 seconds is too long for a kind of time delay bit of humour, maybe 8 seconds or something, so that they keep talking over each other and they can't quite make it work. But 26 seconds became laborious. And it ultimately meant that you'd get the same bad joke twice with a 26-second gap in between, because the setup wasn't funny, the punchline wasn't funny. They'd just be sitting there with that kind of awkward silence that you'd get from a Curb or an Office. But there was no lingering joke across the 26 seconds. It was just waiting. From what I've seen of this show so far, it thinks it's a lot smarter and a lot funnier than it actually is, but none of these jokes are particularly landing. Was there anything you liked in particular?
No.
No, me neither. I couldn't tell you one thing I liked.
I kept checking the time.
And it was only 26 minutes long, wasn't it? It's absurd.
It was definitely one of those things that was just kind of like, when is this going to get started? None of the characters are really that...
they're so tropey. You've got the captain who's just useless.
Yeah.
He's supposedly this hero, but he actually had nothing to do with it. The sprinkler system put this fire out.
And they kept harping on that as well, and I think they thought that was funny, and it wasn't really that funny.
Josh Gad, again, I've never actually seen him in anything, but I've seen him in so many interviews, and he comes off as this charismatic, charming guy, and he's playing the idiot billionaire that doesn't actually know anything about his ship, space, how any of it works, similar to Hugh Laurie's character. If you include the guy from Silicon Valley, you've got these 3 central male characters in this show are all idiots. They've got one brain cell between them. You've got the brilliant, was she an engineer?
Yeah.
Billy, was that her name?
Yeah.
I think she was I think her name was Billy. Brilliant mind. And she's off down in the depths of the ship or something doing engineer work.
They're all just stereotypes and caricatures that have been on plenty of other shows. Yeah, I think we've just reached a state with television where showrunners really need to push the boundaries and step outside of their comfort zone, and when they don't, we get things like Avenue 5.
Yeah. Do you get the sense that it could be a bit of a slow burner and maybe should have all been released at once? And that's a very millennial, 21st century, I have Netflix thing to say. But
I don't think they could have had anything to lose by releasing it all at once, because, if they released it all at once and I watched the first episode, I might be inclined to be like, okay, well, the second episode's here, let me see what it's like.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to watch the second episode of this.
I might watch the second episode, but us not review it, because I cannot honestly believe that it's this bad and will continue to be this bad. But we haven't actually said this at the front of the show, but we're going to be a lot more cutthroat this year.
No more Kryptons.
If something's not working, it's gone, because a lot of stuff is going to be released. We finally got a release date for Altered Carbon Season 2, late February, which I'm thrilled for. So I think we're going to probably nip this in the bud now. If by some miracle, episode 3 or 4, it kind of gets better, maybe we'll revisit it, but I have no hopes that that's going to happen, unfortunately.
It's a shame, because, like you said, on paper, everything about this show looks like it should be great.
All I was thinking when I was watching is it kind of one of those Star Trek situations where they create food out of nothing? How will this show sustain itself because it's set on a ship? And presumably they're stuck on this course. It's not like the Orville where they can visit a million different planets or they're kind of in control of themselves. It's a driverless ship. So every episode is going to be a bottle episode, basically, with this fairly mundane cast of characters. And
in our solar system.
And I'm using fingers as little quotes here, in this comedy, because there's just nothing. I could not tell you one joke that they tried to tell, even one that didn't work. Nothing's stuck with me.
The only joke that I can remember is them constantly bringing up Avenue 3 and the captain saying, "But I didn't do anything, it was the firefighters."
Yeah.
That's kind of like the height of comedy in this show.
This show is not funny. That's the bottom line.
We had our first official Legends of Tomorrow episode. Well, it's technically the second episode, but the first episode of the season was part of the crossover. So this is our first Legends only kind of crisis aftermath episode.
I mean, right off the bat, I think this is the best episode of Legends since before the season 4 mid-season break. So I think everything after the mid-season break last season, just for whatever reason, I thought was pretty bad. So this is the best episode since at least 2018.
It was a very on-brand episode for Legends without going into Bebo territory. Sometimes Legends gets a little too silly for its own good, but this sort of stayed on track. It was a little bit more serious than the usual Legends episode because they were Sarah was dealing with the death of Oliver, and the Legends didn't really know how to be there for her, which I thought was an interesting way of approaching it because we don't often see Sarah emotional, but she did kind of have a bit of a breakdown in this episode. But yeah, I think they handled the crisis thing really well, acknowledging it but not making it the central part of the episode.
Yeah. It seems that this season's going to be about Astra having released the worst souls from hell.
Yeah.
And this week they had to go and deal with Rasputin, who wanted to become this unkillable Tsar. I like that. I thought it was okay. They took this documentary film crew. They're basically trying to get their funding back and trying to get some good, positive vibes from the American public. So they're doing this ride-along mockumentary style thing. They take these 3 crew members, I don't know what the year was, but to meet Rasputin. Yeah, that was okay. I quite liked Atom Cam, where Ray had this camera right in his face and you could see him when he was tiny, kind of flying about. But that's going to be this season. It was Mysteries last year. Did they call them Encores?
Yeah,
this year?
They're Encores.
Yeah, pretty standard Legends stuff.
Presumably, though, we'll also get quite a lot of John Constantine this season.
I hope so.
I mean, he's not listed under the main cast anymore, which always worries me because I really enjoy Constantine on Legends.
So far we have Mona, Gary, Nate, Charlie, Constantine, Ava, Berad, who is Zari's brother, I think, Sarah, Mick and Ray. Presumably we're going to get Zari back at some point. I don't know if there'll be an exchange with Berad. He might have to go be dead again. Nora was mentioned. I wonder if we'll get her. So we've got quite a big cast, and Charlie was immediately kind of put somewhere else.
Yeah.
Talking about Constantine, I wonder if he's actually going to be kind of in hell or wherever he disappeared off to for a few episodes, because there's quite a big amount of people here. They were balanced really well in this episode, but we've got 10 legends, not including Zari and not including Nora, and obviously not including the week's villain. So it's a lot of people to balance. So I think they might look for ways to kind of take people off the board, as they did with Charlie, kind of weirdly, in this episode.
That is one of the strong suits of Legends, though, as opposed to some of the other Arrowverse shows. They are able to deal with an ensemble very well. And I think probably because they usually have more than one problem happening at the same time, so they're able to kind of divide up into smaller teams, and this team goes here and that team goes there. Plus, the characters are really interesting in their dysfunction.
Yeah.
I mean, none of these people are really heroes, except for maybe Ray Palmer. He's got that kind of wide-eyed idealistic thing. But everybody else is sort of damaged in some way or another, not necessarily who you would think of as the good guy, but they're acting as the good guys. And so that leads to a lot of interesting character development. I'm not sure I want Zari back. The thing that gives me pause is the romance between her and Nate.
Yeah.
Ray and Nora are going to be written off this season.
Yeah.
We've got Ava and Sarah. We had
Gary and Mona for a little while.
we had Gary and Mona briefly. Then she
someone else.
The werewolf, the Hawaiian werewolf. We had Nate and Charlie's original person, the original Charlie. And I just kind of feel like Nate and Zari is going to be a repeat of that relationship. Like, it's not something we need again. So for that reason, I kind of don't want Zari to be back. And just from the way it's set up, it looks like Nate is going to be kind of spearheading this quest to find the woman that he was in love with. And I'm kind of done with that. I want Legends hijinks and shenanigans, no more love stories.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like that is a Legends staple. You know, two of the crewmates having a will they, won't they across a season. Yeah, I like this. I thought it was funny. I thought it was well told. I thought it was, like, you know, zany in the Legends style. I mean, they're not really reinventing the wheel by going after these souls of the worst all season long. Like you said for our Crisis episode, I kind of thought the whole point of this might be something, you know, the fallout from Crisis and, you know, visiting time periods or different... I don't know what their ship is capable of, if it's capable of going to different Earths or anything, but I thought they could have had fun with that. So this seems fairly safe, but it's funny. And all of 2019's episodes, I thought it kind of lost its spark. I don't know quite how, but after that mid-season break, we went review after review after review. We did all of them. And they just, I don't know, they'd lost something. So it's nice. It feels reinvigorated. I think John, other than Sarah, is like my favourite part of the team. So I hope he remains. He had something really good I like him and Gary, actually, as like demon hunters. That would be a show I'd watch.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since it was like my favourite of the DC. I'm kind of slightly over Legends, but this was as good as Legends has been in a while. So if it's your kind of show, and I know I'm speaking to a very tiny minority.
I don't know. Like, it's my kind of show. Yeah. I never thought it would be. Like, when Legends first started, I was just like, no, that is so beneath me. And now it's one of my favourite shows because, weirdly, they deliver most consistently out of all of the shows. They have some misses and some things that don't quite work really well, but, you know, when thinking about some of the other shows like Flash specifically, Legends, you know where you stand with Legends, and it kind of does what it says on the tin, and it's able to consistently do that, so that's kind of a nice thing, and it's fun.
Join us again next Wednesday when we'll be delivering some more reviews about genre TV and film, and let us know if there's anything coming up that you think we should be reviewing. We're going to be doing Picard starting next week.
I'm excited for that.
I am as well. Looks really good. We'll be doing a complete watch through of Altered Carbon Season 1 at some point. We're going to delay that a little bit because February 27th is when Season 2 comes out, so we'll probably be mid-February. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and see you next week.
See ya.